What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Vulnerable Moments, the podcast. I'm your host, Joevan J. Palmer. And as always, we have vulnerable conversations. So today we are going to talk about holding on to guilt and shame and why we should not hold on to something that does not belong to us. Oftentimes, I've looked back at my life and I always ask myself, like, yo, why do you always feel guilty for guilt that doesn't belong to you? I'll be like, something would happen and automatically I would point the blame at myself as if it's my fault. And I'm like, yo, why do you do that? That's not healthy. It's not conducive to your health. It's not conducive to the lifestyle that you want to live. It's not conducive to the current lifestyle that you live. So why do we hold on to guilt? And I'm asking myself, well, why do I do that? When something goes wrong, I'm always asking things like, did I do this? Or where did I go wrong with that? Well, what if I could have did this right? What if I did that wrong? And then like when it boils down to it, sometimes it's not even my fault. And I'm always feeling responsible for every action surrounded by me because one, leadership carries a heavy weight that sometimes we don't know it carries. And sometimes it carries a burden that we sometimes don't know that it carries. And I'm realizing as I'm reflecting back on my childhood, I've always felt like I needed to be the responsible one in every place that I was in, at home, in school, in this, out playing around in the streets with friends and stuff like that. Like I've always felt like I need to be the responsible one. And I'm asking myself, like, why did I take on that burden? And I ask myself, like, is it because is it the empath in me that feels like I need to hold on to this? This is the burden I must carry, or what is it? Like, is it childhood trauma that's like really just like continually going with me? What is it that has me holding on to this guilt and this shame? And I realized that I had to let it go. And if you are somebody who carries the burden of responsibility for other people, responsibility for yourselves, not for yourself, but more so responsibility for other people, you have to let that responsibility go. Especially if you are a parentified child where you felt like you needed to carry the burden of your siblings. You had to carry the responsibility, you had to carry the load because your parents are running around and they placed you in charge at a young age, and you were pretty much grew and groomed into practically a parent at a young age. I've learned this in social work. We talk about this a lot of time. Like we have a lot of parentified children in the world of social work where their parents either just aren't around or the parents place them in charge on purpose because they have to work or they're out in the streets playing around or they just don't want to be around. And someone within that family dynamic assumes the responsibility and the role of a parent. And sometimes, if you weren't given that role, we sometimes pick that up off our human nature. Like, if somebody doesn't do it, I would do it. I'll take the responsibility. And then we wind up stacking so much on our plates to the point where we don't realize that we've given ourselves, we become a burden to ourselves, and we become a burden to our lifestyles. We become a burden to other people because no one's asked us to pick these things up. So we're going to talk about how to let go of guilt and shame, how to release the parentified version of yourself, and how to live a life that's worth living and that you should live best. So when it comes to guilt, we tend to soak in guilt because we feel as if it's always our fault. And I was looking on psychology.com to get a better understanding of, what guilt is. And it says guilt is a feeling you have when you realize that you have violated a value system or a moral conduct. Guilt is I did something wrong, and it's actually a useful emotion that motivates us to change. With feelings of guilt, you are focused on a particular behavior. Perhaps you don't hold the door open for an elderly woman behind you, and you shut it quickly on her. You feel bad or guilty because it's not consistent with your value system. You want to be kind and respectful to others, but got in a hurry and missed the opportunity. So guilt is pretty much aligned with our value systems. Psychology.com. I'm sorry, no, that's edandcounseling.com. Sorry. That's that terminology from them. So what are your values? A lot of us don't have values. Like we don't have core values, or we may have values, but we just don't pay attention to them because life just sometimes gets in the way. And I understand that. I get it 1,000%. Life can sometimes get in the way. It can become a burden. It can become a headache, but you have to make time for your values on a daily basis. It's not a thing that you can just pick up and drop and come back to when you want to. Your values have to operate with you on a daily basis. When you wake up first thing in the morning and you look at your checklist, or you look at your life list, or you look at your intention list, whatever that list may be, you have to ask yourself, are my values aligning up with what I have to do today? And if they do not align with what I have to do today, I cannot do this today, or I have to do this another day because it's going to throw my day out of whack. And you can feel guilty for that. You can feel guilty for wanting to put yourself first because you have been taught to put yourself last your entire life. But your value system is the first thing that should come. And that means you have to come first. You have to become a priority to what your values are and what your life is going to look like, what your day is going to look like, what your hours are going to look like. When you write down your values, like I had to really think about my values, I think last year, like what are my core values? And at 34 years old at the time, I really could not think of what my core values were. You know, why I couldn't think at that time, why didn't I have any, or why weren't core values taught to me, or why no one really mentioned core values. Like I've heard the word value, I heard about the value system through the DISC assessment that I offer and everything like that, but I never really took time to really focus and hone in on my core values, the things that are no longer going to be, the things that are no longer going to disrupt my life. Like, yo, if this goes against my values, then it does not make sense. And I realized why I felt so guilty all the time over things, because there were so many things that I were allowing to happen in my life that were going against my core values. But the thing is, when I didn't know my values, I didn't understand why I felt guilty. And as I've, took a deeper dive into my life, into my self-development, I realized that, core values is you got to respect me. You got to respect my time. You have to respect my space. You have to give me time to do things. You have to give me time to understand things. You have to understand that, I'm not the type of person that's going to go and lie and cheat to people. That goes against what I like to do. Or I don't like last minute things or last minute opportunities and stuff, like not opportunities, but last minute things that come my way that disrupt my life. I don't like being boxed in a corner. So that goes against my core values of my respect and my time, my boundaries. You have to know what your core values are, what your boundaries are, what are the things that you are going to stick to no matter what. And I'm learning this, and it's a daily learn. It's a daily thing of, sometimes it feels like a heavy burden. It feels like a tall order to carry, but I'm realizing that I'm willing to take this order to take my life to the next level. And you have to be willing to do this to take your life to the next level. If you want to move, you want to become a better person, you want your mental health to perform better, you want to perform better in life, you want to perform better in relationships, you want to release some things, you have to go back to your value system, back to the things, way back in time to where, you were a child and you were trying to develop yourself, and you're asking yourself, okay, as I'm a child, what are some things that I did not like that I allowed to happen? Pause the episode real quick if you have to, and ask yourself, when I was a child, so-and-so did this and I didn't like it. Or I did this to myself and I didn't like it. Ask yourself, what are the things that you don't like in life? And why do you allow yourself to continue to go back to the things that you do not like? Guilt will take you some places that you don't want to be. You will assume the responsibility of things that you don't want to do because you feel guilty, because you feel it's your obligation to do it. Release the obligation of feeling like you got to do everything, because you don't. I've realized that I'm good in so many things, and I have to make one of the toughest decisions of my life today. As you're listening to this episode, I'm making a tough decision in my life, and I'm realizing that I'm asking myself, why do I feel guilty for letting go of something that it's time for me to move on to? It's time for me to pass the torch on to. And it's because I've assumed a responsibility that does not belong to me. I've assumed this responsibility because I feel as if that I need to be part of this. I feel like that without me, it's not going to function, or without me, it's not going to run well, or without me, I'm going to miss out on something. But I'm realizing that God is speaking to me, and God is moving me in life, and God is propelling me, and God is, lifting me up, that whatever I feel like I'm going to miss, I'm not. Because if God is removing you from something, then you got to realize that God is removing you for a reason. It's either removing you from the harm that it can do to you. It's either God is removing you because, God has bigger plans for you that you just can't see, or you just don't understand. God is removing you because you just don't fit in this space anymore. God is removing you. There's so many reasons why God removes you from things, and you have to be receptive and acceptive to what God is removing you from. And I'm so in tune with myself and my relationship with God to this day, where it's like, yo, God, if you say move, I'm moving. I'm not hesitating. I'm not leaving, like having this feeling of guilt that's gonna sit there with me. I'm releasing all of that stuff. And you have to release the guilt of feeling like you gotta stay in something that no longer serves you, or you no longer serve it. So when I go back to the tough decision that I have to make, it's like I'm asking myself, well, why are you feeling so guilty, Joevan, for leaving? Like, if God told you, who is ruler over all things, over your life, their life, this place, everything that has life or doesn't have life, God has control and complete rule over it. Why are you asking yourself, why are you even questioning, God, is this you? When you know it's God. The thing is, like, your value system. If God, this is for those who are believers, who believe in God, a higher power, whichever it may be, whichever you subscribe to, if that God or that thing is not the source of you, or the core value of your life, or of your values, should I say, not the center of your core values, you must go back and really reflect on what it is that is the center of your core values. Have you put your mom at the center of your core values? Have you put your dad at the center of your core values? Have you put your sister, your brother, your friends, your family? Have you put yourself at the center of your core values? What is at the center of your core values that's stopping you from actually understanding that this life that you live is not yours? We are all called to something, and we're all called to be in a space. But what happens is we want to do so much to reach this space that we sometimes forget that we need to be in just one space, and we got to sit still, and we got to just allow for that stillness to be. And when you allow yourself to sit still, you feel guilty, because now you feel like you're being selfish towards others, or you feel like you're being selfish, and you feel like you're not giving what you should be giving to others, or people aren't giving to you what you need to be given. You got to realize there's a season for everything. There is a season for everything. There's a season that you need to be selfish with yourself and time. There's a season where you need to be a giver. There's a season where you need to be like, maybe like dual of those things. Like, I give 50% and I'm selfish 50% or selfless, whichever you want to use. But you got to understand that guilt does not belong to you. Shame does not belong to you. I tell people all the time, now that I've done so much work, the inner work for myself, I've been going to therapy, I've been talking my problems out, I've no longer been suppressing things. When I'm feeling a type of way, I ask the question, I talk about it, I don't hold it in, because I'm realizing that when I hold things in and when I become this emotional hoarder, that's where the guilt sinks in at. Guilt sinks in when you hoard in every emotion, or you hold in everything that you want to say and you don't say it. You got to stop feeling guilty for things that don't belong to you. That's not your burden, nor is it your cross to carry. Release everything that you feel that is not associated with you. If that's not your problem, it's not your problem. If it's not your burden to carry, it's not your burden to carry. You have to understand that when you walk this life, when you talk this life, when you say you want to be something, you want to go into this place, it's going to cause you to really look at yourself in a different way. And I have to have like these outer body experiences when I sit and I talk and I look at myself dead in the eyes and I say, yo, Joevan, is this the person you really want to be? Is this the life that you want to live? Do you really want to walk around feeling guilty and shameful of everything that you do in your life, or everything that doesn't even belong to you? There's so many things that don't belong to you, you don't even realize it. You're carrying mom's burden. You're carrying dad's burdens. You're carrying your sister's burdens. You're carrying your brother's burden, your best friend's burden. You're carrying so much stuff with you. You're becoming the bag lady or the bag guy who just carries and just picks up and just tosses stuff in the bag and just tosses it over the shoulder and just carries it every day. And you're wondering why you wake up feeling guilty. You wonder why you wake up feeling shameful of the things that you shouldn't feel shameful of. You should never feel ashamed for putting yourself first. But you should never feel guilty for stuff that you should not have to feel guilty for. You got to learn to stop carrying other people's burdens. You got to learn to stop carrying other people's stuff. Carry the stuff that belongs to you. Operate off of value system every day. If you got to look at your values every day, look at your values every day. You have to talk to your values to yourself, put them on your phone, put those values at the front door. When you walk at the front door, Yo, Joevan, these are your values for the day. Yo, who entered your name? These are my values for the day. Respect, loyalty, discipline, love, cheerfulness. Like whatever you feel like you value, charity, giving, operate off those values. Now, when you operate off those values, the guilt releases because you have built yourself up. You have girded yourself up to the point where you understand that what you are holding on to, what you are carrying does not belong to you. It belongs to somebody else. You know, I tell people all the time, I don't live in shame for the life I once lived. I don't live in shame or guilt for the things that I've done. They've done, they're done. They're in the past. They don't belong to me anymore. I've given those things up. I've given those things away. And I've decided to lift myself up, stick my chest out, walk, like the king that I am, and I move. I move and I live the life that I need to live. I live the life that I deserve to live. I live the life that God has blessed me to have. And I'm no longer going back to those feelings. And when I'm not going to say that guilt is all the way gone, because sometimes it just creeps up on me. But I realize that when it comes, I have to stop myself and say, why does this belong to you? This is not yours, Joevan. Let it go. And at that moment, I release it and I let it go because it no longer belongs to me. It no longer serves me. It doesn't serve my purpose. And you have to understand that if it doesn't serve your purpose, if it doesn't serve you, let it go, release it, talk to yourself, talk yourself out of it, and really get to it. I want you after this episode to feel better about yourself. I want you to feel better about the life that you deserve to live. I want you to feel better about your core value system. I want you to feel better about releasing guilt and the people who will try to make you feel guilty of things. Let those things go, move forward with your life, and be a better person to yourself. You deserve this life. You deserve to live the way that you want to live. You deserve to live the life that you see when you close your eyes at night. You deserve to live the life that you see when you're out daydreaming or you're out traveling and you say, yo, I would love for this to be my life on a daily basis. Don't feel guilty to care of yourself. Don't feel guilty for self-care. Don't feel guilty for loving yourself more. Don't feel guilty for the things that you no longer can do that doesn't serve you. When you got to move yourself out of spaces that don't no longer serve you, don't feel bad. Don't feel guilty. Just realize that this is no longer for you. And you have to do something that now serves you. That's going to put you in the place that you want to be. This is another episode of Vulnerable Moments. I'm your host, Joevan J. Palmer. I'm out. Peace.